This is the In Deep on the Delta weekly fishing report for the week of, when is it, Christian, 23rd?
Yeah.
The week of the 23rd. I've got a special guest today, Christian Ostrander. You guys know Christian. He's back from back east. Where you been, Oklahoma?
Yeah, I've been, the last place I was Eufaula, Oklahoma. Fished it for about 7 days. That's where our next tournament's going, so.
Well, I know you've been on the Delta here for a week or two, and you're going to have some time off. You're going to be guiding. We're going to talk about that, and you're going to talk to us about maybe how to catch a few of the bigger fish out here. You know, I talked to Rob Cloutier. Rob's also going to be a special guest today. I've got a pre-recorded session with Rob, and Rob's going to talk about what he's been doing just to get bit. Christian's going to talk about how to get some bigger fish, and that should cover you guys. You guys are going to do the heavy lifting for me today. But before we get into that, I got a couple little announcements, then we'll get into questioning Christian on what the heck he's been doing to get some bigger fish out here. So first thing I want to talk about is the Modesto Ambassadors. They have their 51st annual Night Team Classic. That's June 1st and 2nd. That's out at Don Pedro. Have you ever fished that, Christian?
I fished a few night tournaments out there. I haven't fished that one, but Don Pedro's great night fishing. Killer little jig place at night.
Yeah, so that is the Modesto Ambassadors 51st annual night team tournament, and if you need any information on that, call Harvey. He's at 209-324-2718. I've got another tournament I want to hit up for you crappie guys. I know you guys are looking for some competition, and we got another Crappie Closet Lures tournament at Clear Lake. This is going to be Saturday, June 15th. This is going to be a big one. Everybody's looking at this one, so if you have any questions, check out Marlon. He'll give you all the information at 510-691-0586, and I'll have their information up in the remarks. You know, let's get right into it. I'm going to cover river conditions, and I'll cover a local tournament real quick. Then we're going to get into maybe just a little bit of stripers, and then we're going to really concentrate on the largemouth bass. So let's go with the stripers right now. You know, there's not a lot of interest. They're out here. You been getting any stripers?
No, not where I've been fishing, but I know they've been catching them out west.
Yeah,
they've been catching some big ones out west, but.
Yeah, they're out here. Smaller fish in the central delta. If you're looking for bigger fish, I would say stay out west, Big Break, and out that way the Sacramento River. I know it by Colusa, they're getting some really big fish up there. And Liberty's starting to kick out fish. All that area is good, and they're going to be heading back to the bay pretty soon. So if you want to get out and catch some stripers, go out and get them. The delta's looking great right now. We've got plenty of vegetation out here. About 70, 72 degree water temps. That's what you've been getting?
Yeah.
Visibility in the central delta is, I say, depending on the wind, we have had a lot of breeze, 3 to 5 feet. I know down south they've been talking about 2 feet. It's clearing up north, but it still has some patches of, you know, a little less clarity up there. But everything's ready to go. Have you found anything that's not fishable?
Oh, you can fish it all.
Yeah, it's good. Everything's ready to go. We got fish in post-spawn. We have fish spawning right now. We have still fish in pre-spawn, I think. So it's a hodgepodge of what's going on out here, and I don't think there's one particular, you know, bait or technique that's working. You can come out here and fish what's in front of you and catch fish, you know, all over the place. There was a recent Delta Bass Club tournament. 16 pounds won that. An 8-boat tournament. It was their Tournament of Champions. And I will congratulate Guillermo. I'm going to have to spell your name, Guillermo. Canjura. He won the Tournament of Champions. He had a 5.99 for big fish and 16 pounds. Not a great weight, but you know, it's day to day. You can hit a day out here where the fishing's been tough, and man, the delta's not giving up its fish easily.
No, it's definitely not easy. You're having to cover water, but what I've really found is that they are grouped up good. So, you know, you might hit a dozen to 15 banks, and then all of a sudden, you know, you pull up on a bank and you catch 6 or 7, and you catch a couple, you know, fatty little 4+ pounders or whatnot. That's what I've been finding.
Well, let's get into that. You guys know what the conditions are out here. So you've been pulling some big fish out of here, and is there, you just talked about, finding fish grouped up, but one of the things that I want you to talk about a little bit is how much you're moving around, because, as I've been fishing with more and more of the friends and family out here that are less experienced, they tend to want to stay in one spot for I think too long. How much are you moving around?
Yeah, so you know what, I'm easily, every day I come out here, I'm burning at least $150 in gas. We're burning a ton of fuel. We're running around. We'll hit a spot. If you don't get a bite in 7 or 8 minutes, you got to pull it up and you got to leave. And I'm not talking, you don't got to leave super far. Sometimes we just go around the bend or whatnot. But, depending on the tide, I'm not afraid to run. I'll run 15 miles, no problem. And sometimes that's all it takes. You get a feeding window and they start biting on an area, and then that tide 10 miles away, 15 miles away is going to be that tide again. So we'll run down, run to another area and start whacking on them. What
depth are you looking for when you're fishing? And you said, you're in an area and maybe you fish this little bank behind us. So a lot of times you won't run a long way. So if you're fishing this little tuliie bank and you see a rock wall across the river, are you fishing one thing? No, absolutely not. We've caught them good on rock the last week, and island berms, and all kinds of grass. There's a lot of good frog water. There's lots of good punch water as well. And on a day like this, you're probably not going to be chucking a chatterbait whatsoever.
Because
no wind.
No wind. So a Senko's been good. Low tide. It's been tough. Low tide's rough. You can get away with the punch. We've had some good days punching and drop shot in that weed line, that edge of the weed line. And this year I've seen it kind of better than it's been the last couple years. They'll get on that edge of that weed line really good. And if you're on the right little stretches, you could drop shot them, drop shot big ones, Senko big ones, so.
Are you, I know there's a lot of bluegill out here. Are you strictly looking at bluegill colors? Are you bluegill and crayfish, or what basic colors?
I think if you're around the fish, I don't think it matters too much, but we're definitely throwing some green pumpkins, something imitating a bluegill as well as a crawdad. There was one day we were hammering them so good on a chatterbait in the wind. I ran out of trailers for a green pumpkin, and I just said heck with it and put on a bright red chatterbait and caught a 6-pounder and some other 3-pounders, no problem. So you just got to be around the fish. Getting crazy detailed, great, but you gotta run around out here and find the money stretches, and that's where they've obviously got a lot of bluegill down them as well, and a lot of crawdads. That's what they eat all year long out here is crawdads.
For a guy coming out and he's looking for bigger fish, do you suggest fishing frogs and stuff in that shallow water, or do you suggest fishing offshore a little bit where the drop-offs are in 4 to 6, 8 feet of water?
I'll tell you what, I really like throwing frogs on a lower tide. We've had a lot of success out here last year, especially, but you know what, lately they won't really mess with that frog unless that tide's real high and you get it real into the tulies, just coming down to things like that. But that edge of that weed line, you can still get a topwater bite, a plopper bite or whatnot, but it just seems like you got to really slow down. But you got to slow down. You got to throw a Senko. You got to throw a drop shot. As much as we hate to do it, I mean, I love to do it as long as I'm catching big ones on it. But you just gotta change up.
So the bottom line is, Christian, the Delta's kicking out fish. They're not easy. You got to fish what's in front of you. You have to make a lot of decisions. I know you're going to be in town for another couple of 3 weeks. You are guiding out here?
Yeah, I'm going to be guiding as much as I can the next 3 weeks, and a lot of middle of July through August. So you guys can give me a call. My number is 209-648-3778, and we go right here out of Paradise, and we run all around this Delta. So it'll be a killer time. So give me a call.
All right, I'll make sure I get Christian's information up there, and his number if you want to contact him. This probably is a really good time to, if you're thinking about hiring a guide, have a guide come out, and number one, you're going to catch some fish, I think, And number two, you're going to get an idea of how to move around and how to change baits and how to fish the water in front of you, and maybe get a lot of information on several different techniques. So good time to be out with the guide. And you know, speaking of guiding, I got to go out with a couple of kids yesterday from the San Joaquin Bassmasters. I got a couple pictures. I got to brag about our little trip. We had a good time with Eli and Braden, and they came out. Eli and Braden are young guys, and if you guys haven't had the opportunity to go out with some youngsters, man, get them out on your boat. It was so much fun. You know, you guide a lot. You know, I used to guide, and you forget about how exciting it is when you take guys out that are learning, and you know, you watch them catch their first fish, maybe at a new technique or something, and how fast, especially these young kids, they absorb everything, and they just get, you know, from the beginning of the day that you start to the end of the day, they just, you know, become so much better fishermen. And Eli and Braden had a great time with you guys. You guys did a great job sticking with it. The bite was tough. You got some fish. You got some nice fish, and thanks for coming out with me, and had a great time. We caught most of our fish on jerk baits. We caught a few on worms. We had a topwater bite in the evening. We caught some on poppers, and what else did we get them on? I think we even got some on crankbaits. So we got to fish a variety of lures. And talk about variety of lures, I promised I had another special guest. I'm going to cut over to Rob Cloutier on our pre-recorded session we had, I think it was Tuesday of this week, and we'll let Rob talk about what he's been doing out here, and then we'll get back and finish this up. Okay, as promised, I've got Rob from the Bass Hole here, and Rob, I wanted to talk to you about some keys to success here, kind of post-spawn, late spring. So for the guys that are just coming out the weekend, the guys that don't fish every day, give them some suggestions on what they can do to be successful in the next, I'll say, month or so till we get into the hot days of summer.
Yep, so again, coming into that, you know, late spring, early summer transition, it's kind of a funk. We've got the bass, the majority of these guys just spawned on the last full moon we had. That new moon they spawned as well too. Bite's a little bit tougher than what it should be. Me personally, I've been slowing it down. They're not really chasing for me. I've been getting them on Senkos and drop shots and jigs. Just slowing it down, giving a better presentation to keep it around these fish versus flying by them. And it seems to be putting more fish in the boat, better size in the boat than just hucking baits and winding down the bank. These fish, I know that they're there, and they're just not chasing the blades, the chatterbaits, the crankbaits, the topwater baits. Certain times they will, but the majority of the time it seems to be that slower technique for me. The worm, the wacky worm, the jig, just slowing it down and keeping them right in front of them.
When do you go from just a Senko to a drop shot?
You know, I'll kind of feel it out. If it's a place where it's not a lot of current and I can really work, I only flip or only toss a 7-inch or 6-inch or 7-inch wacky worm. I never ever weedless rig it, Texas rig it, nail weight it, none of that stuff. I've always just had success with the wacky worm. So in that instance, I want, like, let's say we're going into a place and it's a flat, there's the currents on the main side over here and there's not a lot of current up here, I will pick it apart with the Senko. Now if I pull out and I want to fish that current and I want a little bit more weight and get it down faster and not have it float away, that's when I'm going to pick up that drop shot. When I want to fish a little bit deeper, that Senko is my instant bite. You know, I typically look for that trough, that grass line, rocks, and that trough that these fish can sit and stare at these rocks and look at it like a TV and watch anything that moves inside there. And again, going back to technique specific, or not technique, but specific casting, that Senko has to land on the rocks and get pulled in. If you land 4 inches off the rocks, 6 inches off the rocks, 2 inches off the rock and make a splash, for some reason they just don't want it.
So it's precise casting.
It has to be a more subtle thing. I don't know if they're just catching on to us and they're just getting smarter, but I like that natural approach, looking like something falling out of the rocks. And that's the same instance with my jig, especially with my jig. You know, when I fish a jig out here on the river, I'll bring 30 or 40 jigs because I will lose a lot of jigs in the rocks. And I only throw one jig and it's one color and I throw it anywhere I go from here to Clear Lake to Berryessa. It's one color and I buy multiples of them. So I just know it's my favorite jig.
And what color is that jig?
It's a barbed brown. It's brown with a little bit of like almost tan sand on the bottom side right there. And then it's a barbed brown one and I usually chase it with a D-bomb green pumpkin or a beaver green pumpkin. And that's my juice, 1/2 ounce, and that's it.
Okay.
You know, my search bait right now, orange crankbait. You know,
Okay.
it's just moving. They'll eat that crankbait, and it's got to be bouncing, deflecting off of stuff, hanging up in the grass. So I'm more throwing that orange crankbait right now, unless it's that overcast, cloudy day, early morning, late evening, that half hour before the sun's coming up or setting. I will throw that chatterbait all the way into darkness. You'll catch them in complete darkness with that chatterbait. It really draws them out.
Or crankbait or chatterbait?
Chatterbait.
Chatterbait, okay,
You know,
yeah.
back to the crankbait, bright sunny day like this, coming at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm done throwing my top water, 8 o'clock in the morning, done throwing my top water, I'm gonna pick up that crankbait and move, and then till about 10 or 11, I'm either gonna be flipping, throwing that jig, or doing whatever.
So last but not least, what's your topwater suggestion for just searching?
So searching, I'm generally throwing either a Whopper Plopper or El Chapo. I like that El Chapo a little bit more. Something about it's different than the Whopper Plopper. I've lost some absolute giants on that Whopper Plopper, and it's kind of steered me away from it, and I'm more experimenting with that El Chapo. And I keep it basic, either white or black or bluegill. You know, late summer, I'm throwing the black. Right now, I'm throwing the bluegill more than anything, especially with all these spawning fish, the beds with the bluegill beds up there. They tend to hate those bluegill right now, and more of my baits are looking more bluegilly than anything else.
Yeah.
You know, come late fall, late summer, all summer, generally an all black one. Then late fall, I'm going to throw that all white one.
Okay, we'll talk again when it comes into the dog days of summer. It's going to change, and we'll get back and let Rob fill you in on what he's tossing. So, Rob, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll get out there and see if we can't have some success with some of those baits.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Back to the regular programming. Okay, I want to thank Rob for giving us that information. Christian, again, I want to thank you for taking your time. I know you're busy out here. You're getting ready for that Toyota tournament coming up.
Yeah, MLF has a big tournament going out, a big break here in 2 weeks, so looking forward to that. And you know what, some days been a struggle, but you know, most days we've been getting over 20 pounds, so it's been pretty cool catching, you know, at least a 6 or 7 pounder every day.
You know, you run enough, you're gonna, with, you know, an experienced angler, you're gonna come on to fish, and that's, I know that's one of your fortes, is moving until you find fish, and you're not satisfied until you're in a spot that you either know there's fish there, or you think you can catch those fish, and you just have that instinct to do it. And I'm gonna be rooting for you, man.
Appreciate it.
Hopefully you'll pull a big win out here, and then
That's
you
what
go
I
back
want.
east and
Exactly.
get back on the trail.
That's the plan. I'm pretty dedicated to it, so we'll see.
Yes, you are.
But there ain't no place like home, I'll tell you guys that. There ain't no place like this Delta.
All right, well, guys, thanks for watching, and you guys have a pretty good idea what's going on out here. I have been a little lax in the last week or two loading up some videos, but I got a lot of stuff coming down the pipe. I've been dealing with a lot of wind and pollen out here. Man, my sinuses have been backed up for the last couple weeks, but I'm on the back end of that. So you're going to start seeing a bunch more coming out at In Deep on the Delta real soon. So Christian, thanks for coming out here, and we'll see you guys next week. Until then, good luck.
Cool.